Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin On Rugby podcast. Joining me this week is someone back for cap number 72. Welcome back to Mr. Connor Cronin.
Wow, we're up to 72 already. They kind of fly in on you unexpectedly. It's a bit like when it leads up to Christmas, it's suddenly nothing and then it happens.
Exactly, that's it. Yeah, we're already counting down the days to next Christmas. But let's just for now, let's turn our attention to the feature match of the week. Here's a generic 80-word summary of how things went. Leinster beat Connacht 52-17 after a dominant second half at a freezing Aviva Stadium. Early tries from Dan Sheehan and Charlie Tector set the pace, but Connacht rallied to lead 17-14 before Sam Prendergast edged Leinster ahead at the break. The host exploded after half-time with Brian Deeney, Tommy O'Brien, Tector and Joshua Kenny finishing an 8-try display. Prendergast's control and Leinster's tempo overwhelmed Connacht as the home side powered past 50 points. Now, obviously, we'll be going into a little bit more detail than that. And on our previous show on Friday, myself and Kigo talked about how after all the criticism of Leinster's attack at Thomond Park, this was a match where we really needed to show that we did have some kind of a strategy with the ball that worked. And, well, Connor, does the final scoreline tell its own story?
I think for the most part, it does. Looked at all the tries, and I think what we're seeing this week compared to previous weeks is a much, much better attack shape. There was more intent and more... It just seemed like there was a plan, and the plan worked. And that hasn't really been happening for us the last few weeks when it comes to attacking shape. But you could see how players are running, We've talked a number of times, you and I, this season, anytime I've been on, and I've heard the others say it as well, that there's no guile and no misdirection and nobody running dummy lines and all these things. And yeah, we get pinged for crossing a couple of times, but look at how often players are drawn in defenders and leaving space. Look how often you've got a player cutting in on a nice line from outside to inside. Look how often we had players making yards and making space. So it looks like the attack is finally starting to take shape. We've been a bit critical of Blaine Dahl over the last few weeks. We've been a bit critical of the team in general because instead of seeing that bit of Leinstertainment that we're so used to, we're seeing these games where we've had to pull a win out of out of what looks like a bit of a tragic runaround for the first 60 minutes, and then suddenly things are clicking a little bit, or we've just worn the opposition down enough to make it count. But when I started looking just at positives in general, this is a game, and I know you've talked about it with others over the last couple of weeks, this is a game where we earned the right to go wide, where we pull in defenders. So when we get the ball wide, we're making yards on that. We're getting opportunity. Look at the first try. Look how much we've pulled the Connacht defence central so that when it eventually gets out to Dan Sheehan, he's just got so much space. And yeah, there's a player trying to come across and cover, but he's built up a head of steam at that stage, and there was never going to be any stopping him at that point. I think the way we're using our wingers is quite interesting to watch. In that first try, Tommy O'Brien touches the ball 3 times, including a little loop with Will Connors before he flings the final pass out and a great pass as well, like just an absolutely accurate pass straight into the breadbasket. All Dan had to do was catch it and run. If you look at how JJ was used the weekend, and yes, running down his wing was one thing. The fact that we were using him in the aerial battle, and the fact that we used him like a 12 about what felt like a half dozen times, where he's taking crash ball and he's running hard into contact. And that's what you're expecting your 12 or your back row to do. And we've got a winger who wants to do it. He's a player I think is, and I know we said it in the chat as well, he's a player playing his way into a European appearance. Maybe not next weekend, but certainly the weekend after. I think, as well as that, we've got a situation where our line out, with the exception of the very first one we threw in, where I think maybe lifter hasn't lifted high enough or Sheehan's thrown a bit too high. It's a tiny bit off. You can see fingertips touching. But aside from that one, we seem to have quite an accurate line out. The scrum was a lottery. Referees don't know what's happening. But there's all these things we've looked at over the last few weeks where it wasn't working and it wasn't going right. And suddenly things are starting to click. And then on top of that little bit of guile and that little bit of subterfuge, those players who are running really nice lines and trying to suck defenders in, were then defending really well. You could see you could see much clearer how well the blitz works when it works right. There's some lovely shots where, as the players run up, they're almost in a V shape as they're getting up, but it's blocking off so much space and it's limiting the options for the attacking players. So you could really see how much, when the defence is right, how much it works. I think some other positives from the day, I think that we were very, very physical. Sometimes to our detriment, we were a bit physical, trying to go looking for things that we didn't need to. But the bit of physicality and a bit of dog in players and the response when we went behind. Look at how angry Prendergast was as he scored. You don't want to be angry scoring. You want to be celebrating the fact that you're scoring. But he was, it's like, it reminded me in lots of ways of Sexton's first try in the Northampton game in Cardiff. It just had that same sense of, we are turning this game around, lads. We are not going behind. We are not staying behind. We are making this something that, we're making a statement today and we're making this game work. And if you look at how Sam played in the first half versus how he played in the second half, I think his own mindset shifted a little bit there as well. He was much more assertive, I think, in the second half, where in the first half he's got those moments of, will I, won't I, what am I going to do? And I'll talk a bit about negatives in a while, but like creativity was there. Look at Gibson Park, crossfield kick to Tommy O'Brien. There's half a step in that. If he starts running half a second earlier, maybe he catches that ball clean. And you don't mind, because there was the intent and the creativity and the, look, our heads are up and we see space. What are we going to do with it? And I think we've really been missing that the last few weeks. We really haven't had that sense of heads up rugby where we're able to look and see, and what can we change and what can we try and what can we do. And it all just came through a lot nicer yesterday than it has all season. Can we play that way next week? That's a whole different discussion. Will we be let play that way next week? I think that's the real question. But again, better attacking shape, more intent, more physical, clean set piece from a line-out perspective anyway. And who can say anything about a scrum at the moment? But clean line-out, that bit of physicality and that bit of dog, it looked much more like the Leinster we paid to go and see.
Yeah, I mean, what we were saying after last week was that, I don't know how many times I've said this in the history of this pod, but with all due respect to Connacht, a game in Thomond Park one week is going to be different to a home game to anybody, but especially a team like Connacht the following week. They are different. You have different approaches to them, especially from Leinster's point of view, what happened in Croke Park. That was they had a specific mandate there just to go down, get the win by any way. I don't really think that you could take Leinster's attack from that one game and extrapolate the rest of the season from it, because that was a specific remit, I think, down there. But that said, had they had a stinker on Saturday, we would have to expand the conversation and say, this doesn't look like we do have a plan. But what happened against Connacht was, I think we saw what they were trying to do. I agree with what you say about earning the right to go wide. I think what's interesting about the way we've been doing it is one of the things we do to earn the right to go wide is go wide the other way first. We got it's literally coast to coast. We go to one end of the pitch, and if nothing's happening there, they quickly with missed passes, boom, boom, maybe just 2 passes, and it's gone the other way. You've got a fast winger on the other side, or even someone like Dan Sheehan holding his width on the far side, ready to attack on the other side, and that's worked really well. We saw the space being created, and we've known that we can do it. We know that this is an attack that can work. And on top, and and the other thing about what you mentioned about things like those kick passes into the corner, and Sam did a behind the back thing. I'm all for those, but what I liked about this game is that we were doing them when the bonus point was in the bag. We were in the first half. We were sticking to our regular attack plan. Now, obviously, things did go south for a little while. We'll talk about that later. But like you said, we straight from the kickoff. When we went behind, we locked in, and this is something that we got used to over the past 10 years. Leinster doing all the time, conceding a score, and literally from the kickoff, refocusing and getting a score. And it was great to see that back again, that determination to get the back. And like you say, the reaction once we did get the try. The other positives you were talking about, the defense, and what was it, and this, we saw it down in Thomond with the defense. The old style defense that we've gotten used to, well, the knee number type defense. I mean, with the double tackles and the pushing them back, not just making the hits, not just stopping the progress, but actually pushing them back towards halfway. And that was happening again this weekend. But the difference is that we're seeing different center pairings. I mean, the system relies on the centers making the early reads early in the plays and stuff. And we like at one stage we had a situation where if it wasn't Henshaw and Ringrose, there might be a drop in the standards. You wouldn't get that first read, and which would have a knock-on effect on the future elements of the series of phases. But this was Tector and Cooney. This is like our next generation. It's a pairing I can see being part of the team for years down the line. And on this occasion, we just saw them slot right in, and the system worked fine, and it was going well. So that was a positive as well. Yeah,
Tector in particular had a really, really good game, and when he reads that set of passes to make the intercept, that's where you see his defensive capability and the system working, because the pressure is so much there that they're forcing a pass that he can read quickly, and bless him, he just didn't have the legs for it at that stage.
No, but he knew it, and he compensated brilliantly.
Yeah, like really adapted well to the situation he was in to make sure he got the pass away.
Yeah, it was amazing. That's what I was going to say. It's like we were talking about our attack and creating points, but it was actually our defense got us one as well. Actually got us a try, and that's really something that's good to see back. It's good to see different 15s, different teams able to come in and attack. I mean, not only that, Leinster would have trained all week with a certain 23 in mind, but there were so many changes. I've never seen that many changes to a starting lineup beforehand. There was props moved around. We had Harry Byrne dropping out, Osborne coming in, the full 23, but still a strong performance, a team performance, everyone clicking in and able to do it. So, like, I've seen people on the social say, "Oh, it was Connacht weren't great," and all this kind of thing. You can spin it as a negative if you want, but with the way Leinster season has gone and the criticisms, I think just on this particular day for this 80 minutes, they show that they do have a plan. They do have a way they want to play. It's kind of a new kind of a style, but they also have players who are able to carry it out, like on defensively with the likes of Tector and Cooney coming into the center, but also on the wings. I mean, Tommy O'Brien, like you is already established himself in the European team, but JJ Kennedy on the other wing. I mean, he's like he's got
say on the other wing.
Yeah,
his try was not on his wing.
He swapped. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Like,
so if you have the two of them and they're swapping wings, yeah, absolutely.
It's brilliant.
And he's got that James Lowe kind of attitude as well. It's like every single there's no run of the mill contributions from players like that. They want to make every carry, everything a positive contribution. Now, JJ stepped into touch a few times, but that's just that shows his confidence of going wide and going for that. A lot of times wingers don't go for beating them on the outside anymore. And that's what when I was growing up, all that was the wingers job.
That was his only job. Yeah,
exactly.
We're getting you the ball, beat the man on the outside.
And then you had a sort of a generation like as the likes of Dave Carney, who was brilliant at it, getting the ball in the wing, cutting back in, still making some yards and resetting. I mean, that is good in itself. But to see these fast wingers going up the line and going for it, and then
he is fast. Look at him from a standing
he's fast
start.
and strong. Yeah,
like from a standing start, and he steps over the tackle, and then this burst of speed to get him past the next guy. He's an absolute threat, and when you don't want to say things like James Lowe is in the twilight of his career, but let's be realistic. Wingers do not last as long as forwards.
Yeah.
So who's coming through next, and it's great to see, and you love to see that all over the park. There's always the question of who will take the jersey if something goes wrong, and we're seeing a lot of that this year because of the injuries that have happened to some presumptive first team players, and you wonder who will take the step up, who will be the man who gets in and makes the difference. And when you look at how, with the exception maybe of the Ulster game, when you look at how well Tector has played all season, when you look at Kenny doing things like that, when you look at, Andrew Osborne came on and he was playing at fullback, which, wouldn't naturally be his position of choice, from my understanding, but was fairly solid in the position. But then you see him at other points and he's bursting through from centre, that you've got that little bit of shift happening. And that comes back to what I was saying, the guile, the misdirection, there's the fullback, so he's going to, oh crap, he's gone and done that on us. That there's no predictability in what some of these players will do, that it's not a thing of, well, we have 400 minutes of tape on this guy and we can look at, and this is what he always does. And these young guys, they're not doing what he always does. There's a bit of versatility in them, and I think they're buying into the defensive system well, but they're buying into the attacking system better as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to see it working. Obviously, when we come to the business end of the season, knockout games might be different approaches, different styles to use. But at this stage of the season, I think it's really good to see it clicking so well. Well, elsewhere in the United Rugby Championship, Ulster climbed to third with a commanding 28-3 win over Munster in Belfast. Bryn Ward starring in a powerful display backed by Ian Henderson's leadership and a vibrant home crowd. Henderson praised the squad's growing depth and the impact of emerging players as Ulster's form continues to build. Elsewhere, the Stormers edged the Bulls 13-8 before 53,000 fans. Ntutuko Mchunu scoring late to secure their 8th straight league win. Glasgow moved to second after beating Zebra 47-10, while dramatic victories for the Lions and Edinburgh, plus strong Ospreys and Dragons performances reshaped the URC standings, where Leinster now sit in 5th. But now we must return to the Aviva, and we should probably take a look at Connacht's purple patch, because having jumped to a 14-0 lead, Leinster did end up 3 points behind at one stage in the first half. And while the visitors did do well to get those scores, a lot of it had to do with our discipline too, didn't it, Conor?
All of it had to do with their discipline. I would say, I don't think that they get in those positions without poor choices from us. If we go firstly to the quick succession of penalties that gave them as much ground as it was, Mangan we've got Prendergast missing touch. That is unforgivable. You've one job, and you don't need. You're 14-0 up, where whatever number of minutes into the game, you don't need to kick it right out to 5 meters from the line.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that does come under the heading of discipline. That is, it wouldn't count in the penalty stats, but it's not just that. That's a good example of it too. Yeah,
and it's give me the ball 15 meters out. Fine, let's build something if we have to. It doesn't have to be down there, and feeling like, I can, so I should, isn't a good enough reason. I can do this, so I must do it. No, do your basics well. Look at what Harry's been doing the last couple of weeks, and you see really good examples of that. Doing the basic stuff right, and then building on those. And that's what we should have been doing there. But we miss that. He had another couple of moments. I will say as well that I don't want to bash a 20 whatever year old he is, but he's got to be self-disciplined. He's got to remember that, you know, you're standing in the middle of the park and you've got two forwards in front of you, and you're going to go for a little, what am I going to do? Am I going left? Am I going right? And then they hold you up for a maul.
Especially when one of them's your brother.
Yeah, who also got a turnover on him previous in the game. There's absolute bragging rights for Keane from that perspective. Going home next time they're all together. But just he has to be a little bit more aware sometimes that the sensible choice is better than the flashy choice, always. And yes, you know, we mentioned earlier, those little flashy moments are great when they happen, and when they can happen, when you have the freedom to make them happen. And that isn't until you've got, you know, 3 scorers in front of somebody. Then you can do stuff like that, knock yourself out. We're not worried at that stage. But when you're only 2 or less in front of a team, you have to be self-disciplined. You have to be conscious of doing the right thing at the right time. But we'll get off Sam for a minute now, because he doesn't need any bashing. He's going to get this. He'll get this conversation on Monday when he goes in for a video review. Not long after that miss, we end up with a scrum. And that scrum, does that one get a penalty? I think that one forces a penalty against us. Not long after that, we've got Dermot Mangan going straight off his feet in a ruck. Now, I don't know what. Maybe he had a moment where he thought he was Superman, because that's what he looked like. He just dived right in over the top. I've no idea why. I've no idea what he was thinking. You have to connect with your own player. He doesn't even get close. I think his ankles connect on our player. And other than that, he's just... So Brace has no choice in that. He has to give that. So we're allowing access now. And then the line out and the maul and... sorry, it's not a maul. It's a ruck that Connors starts going in the side and then kind of turns himself round and is standing at the back. And like, what picture are you trying to present here?
Yeah.
What are you trying to tell a referee? Hey, look, I came in from the wrong side. I did it wrong, and here I am making a mess of things and causing...
And this was after they'd already been told that the refs would be specifically looking out for that in this game.
It's just silly. Now, we can say the refs are going to be looking for things like in from the side and whatever. And, you know, I don't think he was as eagle-eyed as he'd have liked. But that one, there was no missing it. It was silly. On top of that, then, you know, that leads directly to 5 metre tap and go and their first score. So 3 mistakes on our part gift them the opportunity to tap and go at 5 metres, and suddenly we're 14-7. Then a few minutes later, we've got Joe getting yellow carded. Now he can say all he wants about, but he knocked it on, and that's when I pulled the ball back. Unfortunately, if the ref doesn't see it, and we've already been presenting a poor picture, then he's going to see that as cynical play 5 metres out, and they opt for a previous penalty further infield and kick 3 points, and now suddenly it's 14-10. And then again, our discipline just... It was poor leading up to their second try as well. Like, we're giving them access by not being sensible. A team like La Rochelle will not just be hard on us in those moments. They will punish us. That's not just 10 points for those 3 particular penalties. That's 14. And they have the physicality to make those 5 metre tap and goes work. So we cannot, in all sensibility, we cannot be looking and saying, oh, sure, it's grand, it's just a penalty. Well, even if it's just a penalty, and even if they just kick 3 points, why would you choose to make your own life difficult? Our discipline the last bunch of weeks has been poor. This match in particular, we were at 9 penalties in 27 minutes. Now, and that's 9 given penalties. That doesn't include... I've said this before on this same pod. I have said that if you then take every time the ref calls advantage, even if it's for 40 metres advantage, every time the ref calls advantage, that counts. That counts as you infringing. And if you infringe, if he calls 3 advantages and you're only conceding 1 penalty, you've still chosen 3 times to make it easy for the opposition. And, I'm a bit tongue-in-cheek on that 40 metres gain, because I'm not sure how that wasn't advantage over from a scrum penalty. They've got themselves into a try-scoring position, and then we've turned the ball over.
Yeah.
I think that would fairly...
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I know it's at the referee's discretion, whatever they do, but they're still... I mean, the previous week we had a case where we got a penalty around the 22, and then we just had phases in the 22. And you could argue that if it's not going anywhere in that situation, you shouldn't call advantage over. You should just call it back for the penalty. You're not going anywhere. But they just let us run out the penalty. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 phases left to right is no advantage.
Yeah.
But
in this case, we're not exaggerating. It was 40 meters. Yeah.
And an opportunity. But anyway,
to get to 5 meters from the line.
I don't know what happened in between halves. Allegedly, it's an injury. There's a tiny bit of me hoping that there's an assessor standing in the tunnel going, Andy, we're not impressed with some of your calls.
Substitute, bring on the sub.
Yeah, but those assessments happen afterwards, and they do it that way. But
I know you don't want to hear the cheer. I mean, there were cheers in the ground when they announced the change, but it's you don't want to hear that. And
we were utterly the wrong side of the ref. There's a moment where
exactly
on the restart we get called for taking the man out in the air, and he's able to say, well, look at how many times I've pinged you down there, so there must be something going wrong. So maybe it is. Maybe his foot wasn't down. Even if I told you his foot was down first and then changed my mind, maybe it wasn't down. And I think he got that call from the sideline, fair enough. But we were utterly the wrong side of the ref the entire first half. And I've said, like I said already, you cannot afford that many penalties. Now, the fact that we only gave away 5 in the other 53 minutes of the game, we're 14 penalties for the game is what we're officially down for. And again, I'll say that's 14 plus probably 6 advantages as well, which technically counts as 20. But 5 penalties in the second 53. To come back to what I said in the first half, we're clearly adjusting better, but we've given 20 meters of ground in the past few weeks for back chat to referees. We've given far more penalties than I'm comfortable with, and it's not sensible play. It's not the Leinster way either. Like we've looked at seasons where we might have said, sure, look, we've had a few yellow cards and it's the end of the season, and like we've had yellow cards, we've had red cards, Leinster haven't had red cards. James Ryan had a red card. But it's just not necessary. We've got the skill, we've got the ability, we have the leadership on that pitch to know how to adapt to a game without getting the wrong side of a referee. And literally getting the wrong side of things, as Will Connors demonstrated. That was, at that point, he was on, I think that was a second call against him personally. So... is the scrum cap too tight? Can you not hear the ref has called you out individually at this stage? Jack Boyle got pinged a couple of times and then got hooked. Now, I think he also might have got injured, but it's unnecessary to give away that many penalties. Every team is going to give away penalties. There is no doubt about it. You will give away penalties. I remember playing for a team at one stage where we got a new coach and he said, lads, how many penalties is acceptable? And we came to an agreement as a team that if we were giving away a penalty sort of every 10 minutes, 8, 10 at a push in a game, that had to be the limit. That we had to agree as a team, that's our limit. We have reached the point now where no more penalties are forgivable. And if you became the player to give away the 11th penalty, That was a lot of burpees, and worse for the 12th penalty. But it stands for professionals as well. You know, we were an amateur team just trying our best to keep moving up the league. How do professionals think they'll win a game on 14 penalties against opposition who just want to make full use of the territory gains you can get from penalties, or just kicking it straight over the posts? You know, 14 3-pointers. And okay, they're not all going to be in a position to score 3 points, but 14 3-pointers is 42 points. Do you want to give away 42 points a game? Or do you want to have better discipline?
Yeah, it's something that we just haven't been able to crack this season. It has been a serious problem. It's going to lead to points. It's going to lead to more down the line. I mean, like Nienaber, when he's been there for press conferences, he's been asked about this. And I think his perspective is that the culture he's trying to bring into Leinster, especially on the defensive side of things, is they're almost, rather than telling them to just to go out and give away penalties, but they're asking them just to raise the risk element in their challenges and in their approach to tackles and to breakdown, to raise that. So that's a real South African philosophy as well. It's the way they play. They do play on the edge. They go to physically dominate. And you've seen these. I mean, we've seen some of the James Ryan challenges, the way he goes in. It does seem to be that we're kind of set up in a way just to go that little bit extra, run the risk of the penalty in the card maybe, but maybe, the net result might be better. And, but like I say, it's something that you do have to manage. It's something that you have to, like you say, you have to play the referee. They had this, like they say, they had this thing about swinging around, someone making the tackle and then ending up in the other direction and just sort of staying there, holding on to the tackled player, which is in turn blocking, obviously, access to the ball. And that was happening last week. And they said this week they're going to look at it instead. And it's just something we should have been on top of, especially when we got pinged earlier. And like you say, it did lead to a try. But it also happens on the offensive side of things as well when we're attacking. You mentioned when we were talking about the attack, how sometimes our patterns and the way we try to do it, someone's a blocking line has to be run perfectly. Otherwise it's going to be blatant crossing. Maybe we were a little bit lucky on the first try. There was a suspect block there along the line. So it's something that has to be gotten right each time. But again, we're going for it. Yeah, exactly.
There's a fine line between running a blocking line and running a decoy line.
Yep.
And you've got to make sure, because there's, is it the fourth? I can't remember which of the tries now, because I have to look back at them again. And there's a moment where Bundy is always looking at the player who's running the decoy line. He's never in a position to bite in and take Tommy O'Brien coming through the middle, I think is when it was. He's always watching that way. And that's fine, because that's a decoy line. It's not a blocking line. Yeah. And the balance has to be right, though.
Yeah. Yeah, if you run straight into their center, you're going to be pinged more often than not. So it is something they have to get right, and over the course of the game. So I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm not expecting a dramatic increase. I mean, Irish teams used to be really good on the discipline side of things, keeping it down to under the 8 penalties per match. But I don't, I think from Leinster's point of view, like over the years, they were doing that and still not winning. So they figured maybe, they something had to be adjusted, some sort of calibration had to take place, bring that little extra bit of edge maybe into the game so you can get in other areas, so that when you get to the ends of games, you're able to. So, I mean, I'm hoping it's something that we can fix. Like I say, this is Connacht in January, when we're playing someone like Toulouse or Bordeaux in May. Hopefully, we're gonna need a better look at it, better sight. We need to have the referee on our side at that time of the season. Otherwise, we won't be getting very far. But it's definitely something that we'll need to look at for sure. Okay, so we had some comments on our Facebook page as ever. We had Cormac Mannion, who said, huge improvement over previous performances, but still quite worrying how we switched off for about 25 minutes in the first half. You got a feel for Connacht. The squad is paper thin, and while they showed flashes of Lancaster at times, They ran out of steam. Then we had Darren Carney, who said a great overall performance and we did well to steady the ship after a ropey 15 minutes. Leo said in the post-match that an opposition will target it to get scoreboard pressure on us and that will wilter. The tough, tight games we are winning now, hopefully that will stand to us later in the season. Do you agree, or will you said the same thing a different way? If you want to get involved in the conversation yourself, do head over to our Facebook page after the full-time whistle in Leinster and Ireland matches and feel free to leave your thoughts. Okay, look, we're going to leave it there for now. Many thanks to Conor for joining us. Look forward to having you back on soon.
Thanks a million for having me.
And as ever, be sure to stay tuned to Harpin On Rugby on all the socials during the week, starting with our bonus chat posting on YouTube Tuesday, where we'll be harping on what lies ahead for Leinster in our Champions Cup pool. Then our 80 plus column, where we try to look at the wider rugby world, that posts every Wednesday over on Substack. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.